So I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were complaining about their inability to do much in Paint and not wanting to pay the subscription for things like Photoshop. Now, I went over quite a few options with them, and I thought that it would be a great idea to do a quick video on some very simple and free tools that you can use instead of using Photoshop, especially if you're just trying to do any kind of simple edit. My first main suggestion is Paint.net. I've mentioned this in quite a few videos before, but Paint.net is a fantastic free tool. It is basically designed around the older versions of Photoshop. It's very simple. It's not overly complicated. You're able to do a lot of good editing in this tool, and it's free. It's very easy to learn how to use. If you've ever used Photoshop before, all of these tools are very, very familiar. And you do have quite a few options in terms of things that you can do. You can easily blur stuff, box things out, do some masking. It has layers, which is nice. It's basically, a beefed up version of Windows Paint. My favorite thing about Paint.net is just how quickly I can get something in here, quickly make a change, and then bring it back out. I use this to resize pictures all the time. I used to use it a lot more before I started using another tool that we'll talk about in a bit. But this one is just one of those really good ones where you can easily bring in a picture, do a quick edit, throw some text on something, blur something out, copy it, and then throw it back into Discord or Twitter or wherever you're going to be posting that picture. Now, one of the other really cool things about Paint.net is that they do allow plugins, and tons of people create plugins for Paint.net to be able to do more advanced features and edits. So you can actually end up going to the public plugins directory, the index here, and you can take a look at tons and tons of options that they have here. There are 32 pages worth that you can go ahead and check out, and they're very easy to install as well. I will leave links to this down in the description below, as well as a link to download Paint.net itself. Now, if you want a tool that's a little bit more advanced and one that has more potential in terms of capability, then your best option is probably going to be GIMP. Now, if you've never heard of GIMP, it is a very, very useful free tool. It's basically what Blender is to 3D animation and design. GIMP is to 2D in terms of it being an open source, very, very well built tool, and it is a much more advanced version of what you get from Paint.net. For a free tool, GIMP is insanely powerful. You have a lot of things that you can do with it. A lot of people use GIMP to create GIFs. A lot of people use it to do their full editing on. There's a lot of really good instructional videos on YouTube that you can go ahead and check out, and GIMP also has a bunch of these laid out on their website as well. So on their website, they have really good breakdowns on beginner, photo editing, painting, programming. You can even create short animations within GIMP, which is really awesome. I'm sure you've probably watched an animation on YouTube, if you're old enough, that was probably made using GIMP. Just like Paint.net, GIMP can utilize a lot of plugins, and with one of the newest revisions of GIMP, it can even use some of the Photoshop plugins that are designed for Photoshop. Now, GIMP is currently reworking their library of plugins, so you are going to have to go around to a bunch of different websites in order to grab plugins, but there are a ton out there. They're relatively easy to install, and they can really improve the functionality of the program. For example, one of my favorite plugins for GIMP is actually called Darktable, and what it is it's the GIMP's version of Lightroom for Adobe. Super awesome tool that allows you to import, organize, and create a library for all of your photos. And as I mentioned, there's a tool that I've been using a lot more often, especially now that I'm in an IT role in my professional career, and it's called Greenshot. Now, Greenshot is a super helpful tool if you share a lot of screenshots where you're doing some kind of tutorial, documentation, or how-to. What Greenshot allows you to do is easily take a screenshot, add arrows, boxes, highlights, all these kinds of things to the screenshot very, very quickly within its own editor, and then export that outwards. So for example, right here, if we go ahead and we do a screenshot and I select right here, I can go ahead and open that in the image editor. And from there, I can go ahead and, let's say we want to point at the eye. Boom, point it at the eye. Let's say I wanted to highlight something, highlight a section. It makes creating documentation so easy. And if you're sharing a lot of screenshots where you are showing things, for documentation, tutorial purposes especially, this makes life so easy. And it doesn't even have to be a screenshot. You can actually right click on screenshot and you can open an image from a file. You can grab something from your clipboard. So I can copy an image from Google image results and then open it in here and do all of my editing as well. There's just a lot of really good useful tools to create great documentation in here. It works really well with all the Microsoft stuff, so I use this really heavily at work. And I think it's just a really awesome tool, especially if you're utilizing it for screenshots. With the preferences, you can change how everything works in terms of the shortcuts. And whenever you go ahead and you take a screenshot, you have a lot of options as to where you want it to go. So it makes things really easy to share screenshots and stuff as well with your friends in Discord, on Facebook, or however you want to share images. But yeah, that's it. This is a relatively short video, but I just wanted to show you a few options out there as alternatives to Photoshop, especially, from the most simple, which is paint.net, and, something that I use all the time, to GIMP if you want a lot more of those advanced features, and then GreenShot if you have a more particular use case like I do, where you're doing documentation and walkthroughs and tutorials and step-by-steps on how to get something done. And so I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to leave those down in the comment section below. As always, big thanks to my patron sponsors, Thought Slime and Stepback, and thank you for watching the end of this video. If you do want to check out any of my other videos where I talk about awesome free applications, you can go ahead and check out my video right up here. And until next time, stay safe out there. I'll see you next Saturday.